The crystalline amphitheater of the Galactic Council gleamed with the soft luminescence of 1,000 different worlds. Zara Moonwhisper pressed her palms against the observation deck's cool surface, her dark eyes wide with disbelief as she watched the proceedings unfold below. Her auburn hair fell in gentle waves around her shoulders, trembling slightly as her breath fogged the transparent barrier that separated her from the most important vote in galactic history. As the only human studying xenobiology at the prestigious Astral University of Kepler 442b, Zara had spent 3 years learning about the magnificent diversity of intelligent life that populated their galaxy. She had fallen in love with the graceful movements of the Aquarian delegates, their translucent blue forms rippling like living water as they communicated through bioluminescent patterns. She had marveled at the crystalline collective, beings of pure mineral consciousness, whose thoughts rang like celestial music when they spoke. But today, none of that wonder mattered. Today, they were voting on the fate of her world. "The evidence is undeniable," intoned Counselor Drakmor, his reptilian form towering over the speaking podium. His emerald scales caught the amphitheater's light as his yellow eyes swept across the assembled delegates. Humans are driven by primitive emotions that make them unpredictable and dangerous. Their capacity for violence, their tendency toward irrational passion, their inability to control their feelings, all of this makes them unsuitable for galactic society. Zara's heart clenched as images of human conflicts flickered across the massive holographic displays. Wars, arguments, passionate embraces, tears of joy and sorrow. All the raw, unfiltered emotion that made humanity beautiful was being presented as evidence of their unworthiness. "I have studied their transmissions for decades," Drakmor continued, his voice cold and clinical. "They fall in love recklessly. They fight over trivial matters. They weep over fictional stories. Such emotional instability cannot be tolerated in our peaceful galaxy. I propose complete isolation. Earth must be quarantined indefinitely." A murmur rippled through the assembly, and Zara felt tears burning her eyes. She had always known that. Humans were more emotional than most species, but she had thought it was a gift, not a curse. Here, among beings who prized logic and tranquility above all else, she had learned to see her own emotions as something shameful to be hidden from. His seat among the ethereal delegation, Kale Starweaver watched the human girl in the observation deck with growing fascination. His species communicated primarily through telepathy, sensing thoughts and emotions with crystalline clarity. But there was something about the intensity of her feelings that drew him like a moth to flame. Her pain was so pure, so genuine, that it resonated through his telepathic senses like a heartbreaking melody. Kale's own appearance reflected his ethereal nature, tall and graceful, with skin that seemed to shift between silver and pearl depending on the light. His eyes were a deep violet that seemed to hold the mysteries of nebulae, and his white hair moved as if it were underwater, defying the artificial gravity of the station. Like all his kind, he had been taught that excessive emotion was a sign of evolutionary inferiority. Yet watching Zara's tears, he felt something stir within him that he had never experienced before. "The ethereal delegation casts our vote," he heard his elder, Celestin Voidwhisper, announce in their melodic mental voice that echoed through the minds of all present. "We vote for isolation." Zara's sob reached him even through the observation deck's barriers, and Kale found himself half rising from his seat before catching himself. What was happening to him? Why did her pain affect him so deeply? One by one, the delegations cast their votes. The Aquarians voted for isolation, their bioluminescent patterns flickering with what Kale now recognized might be uncertainty rather than the calm certainty he had always assumed. The crystalline collective's harmonious chimes sang their agreement with quarantine. The Silicon Syndicate's binary codes translated to affirmation of isolation, Only one voice spoke against the tide. Counselor Nyx Shadow Dancer, a member of Drakmore's own reptilian species, rose from her seat with fluid grace. Her scales were a deep purple that seemed to absorb light, and her golden eyes held wisdom that spoke of centuries of life. "Esteemed colleagues," she began, her voice carrying the slight hiss that marked her species, "I must dissent. Yes, humans feel deeply, but is this truly a weakness? Their capacity for love has driven them to create art that moves the soul, to sacrifice themselves for strangers, to reach beyond their world in search of connection with us. Their tears water gardens of compassion that we, in our cold logic, have forgotten how to tend." Her words sent a ripple of surprise through the assembly. Kale found himself leaning forward, his telepathic abilities unconsciously reaching toward the human girl, whose emotional resonance had become a beacon in his normally serene mental landscape. Nyx continued, "I have observed their culture extensively. Their emotions are not chaos. They are the force that drives them to become more than they are. They love fiercely because they understand loss. They fight passionately because they believe in justice. They weep because they understand beauty. Are these truly traits we wish to eliminate from our galaxy?" But her words were met with dismissive gestures and uncomfortable shifting. The vote continued its inexorable march toward isolation. The mechanical concordance voted for quarantine with their characteristic efficiency. The gaseous confederacy's swirling representatives pulsed their agreement. The photonic alliance flickered their assent dot in the observation deck. Zara felt her world crumbling around her. Each vote was another door slamming shut, another bridge burning between humanity and the stars they had dreamed of reaching for millennia. She thought of her parents back on Earth, of her younger brother who wanted to be an astronaut, of all the humans who had looked up at the night sky and wondered if they were alone. Now they would know they weren't alone, and that they weren't. Wanted dot as the final votes were tallied. The result was overwhelming. 847 species voted for isolation, with only 12 abstentions and Nyx's single vote against. Earth would be surrounded by a containment field that would prevent any human from leaving their solar system. All human students, diplomats, and researchers currently off-world would be allowed to return home, but never leave again. "The vote is decided," announced Sage Lightbringer, the ancient being who served as the Council's arbiter. Her form was pure energy contained within a vaguely humanoid shape, and her voice resonated with the weight of eons. "Earth shall be isolated until such time as humanity demonstrates emotional maturity suitable for galactic citizenship." Zara collapsed against the observation deck's railing, her body shaking with silent sobs. 3 years of study, a lifetime. Of dreams, countless friendships with alien classmates, all of it would end. She would be sent home to a world that would become a prison, surrounded by species who had judged her kind unworthy of the stars. That's when she felt it. A gentle touch against her mind, soft as starlight and warm as summer rain. The telepathic contact was tentative, filled with a compassion so profound it took her breath away. Through her tears, she looked down at the assembly and met the violet eyes of Kale Starweaver. "You are not alone," his mental voice whispered across the void between them, carrying with it an emotion she never expected to feel from one of the ethereal beings. Love dot in that moment, as the galaxy voted to cast out humanity, 2 hearts from different worlds found each other across the vast expanse of space and prejudice. Neither knew that their connection would spark a revolution that would shake the very foundations of galactic civilization. As the assembly began to disperse and Zara was escorted away to begin her journey back to Earth, Kale remained in his seat, his entire worldview cracking like an eggshell. For the first time in his 5 centuries of existence, he questioned whether his people's cold logic was truly superior to the warm chaos of human emotion. And in that questioning, in that first flutter of doubt, love began to bloom like a flower in the darkness between stars. The vote was over, but the real story, the story of two souls who would bridge the gap between worlds, was just beginning. The transport hub of Kepler Station buzzed with the controlled chaos of departure preparations. Hundreds of beings from across the galaxy moved through the corridors with purposeful efficiency, their various forms creating a tapestry of interstellar diversity. But for Zara Moonwhisper, standing in the designated human departure area with her single travel case, the beauty of it all felt like a farewell to everything she had ever dreamed of becoming. Final boarding call for transport vessel. Aurora, destination Sol System. The station's AI announced in 17 different languages and communication methods. The mechanical voice seemed to echo the finality of her situation. She was going home to a world that would become her cage. Zara clutched her research tablet to her chest, feeling the weight of 3 years of xenobiological studies that would now serve no purpose. Her fellow human students had already boarded, their faces masks of resignation and barely contained grief. She was the last one, unable to bring herself to take that final step toward the transport that would carry her away from everything she loved. "You don't have to go." The voice was soft, barely audible above the station's ambient noise, but it sent shivers down her spine. She turned to find Cale Starweaver standing in the shadows of an alcove, his ethereal form seeming to blend with the starlight filtering through the observation windows. His violet eyes held a mixture of determination and something else, something that made her heart skip in a way she had never experienced before. "Cale," she whispered, looking around nervously, "what are you doing here? If your delegation finds you speaking with me—" "They won't," he said, stepping closer. "I've shielded us from telepathic detection." His mental barrier shimmered around them like a soap bubble, invisible but tangible to Zara's newly awakened psychic sensitivity. "I had to see you before you left." The past week had been torture for both of them. Ever since their brief telepathic contact during the vote, Zara had felt an emptiness in her mind where Cale's presence had been. It was as if she had been living her entire life in black and white, only to glimpse color for a single moment before having it torn away. "I can't stay," she said, tears threatening to spill over. "The isolation order, there are places in the galaxy where the Council's authority doesn't reach." Cale interrupted, his mental voice overlaying his spoken words with layers of meaning that made her breath catch. "Hidden worlds, neutral zones, ancient territories that predate the galactic accords." Zara's eyes widened. "You're talking about going rogue." "Cale, you could lose everything, your position, your family, your entire future." His hand reached out, hovering just inches from her cheek, without quite touching. Even that near contact sent waves of warmth through both of them, a connection that transcended physical proximity. "What future do I have without you? This past week, since I felt your emotions, your passion, your beautiful chaos, my world has become colorless. I understand now why my people fear human emotion. It's not because it's primitive. It's because it's powerful beyond our comprehension." Before Zara could respond, a crystalline chime echoed through the station, not from the AI, but from a living being approaching their hidden alcove. Both Zara and Cale tensed, but the figure that emerged was neither security nor council enforcement. "Oh, my stars, you two are absolutely glowing with emotional resonance," came a tinkling voice like wind chimes in a gentle breeze. The speaker was unlike anything Zara had ever seen, a humanoid figure that appeared to be carved from living crystal, her translucent blue form refracting the station's lights into rainbow patterns across the walls. "I'm Luna Crystalheart, and I've been looking everywhere for you." "Luna?" Zara recognized the name. "You're my doormate's friend, the one who studies empathic crystallography." "Former doormate," Luna corrected with a musical laugh. "Since you humans are being expelled, The university reassigned your room, but that's not important right now. What's important is that you two are creating the most beautiful emotional symphony I've ever sensed. It would be a tragedy to let the council silence it. Kale's telepathic shields flickered with surprise. You know about your forbidden love affair? Please, sweetling, I'm a crystalline being who feeds on emotional energy. Your connection has been broadcasting across 3 sectors. It's like watching a binary star system being born. Luna's form shimmered with what might have been amusement. The question is, what are you going to do about it? Final boarding warning for transport vessel Aurora, the station AI announced. All remaining passengers must board immediately. Zara felt panic rising in her chest. The choice was impossible. Go home to safety, or lose the most profound connection she had ever felt, or stay and become a fugitive for love. I don't know what to do, she whispered. Luna stepped between them, her crystalline form resonating with harmonic frequencies that seemed to calm their racing hearts. Then let me make it easier for you. I own a small research station in the Twilight Nebula, neutral space, completely outside council jurisdiction. I've been needing a xenobiologist for my work on cross-species emotional resonance, and frankly, you two are the most fascinating subjects I've encountered in centuries. You'd harbor fugitives? Kale asked, his mental barriers wavering with hope. Darlings, I'd be harboring the galaxy's first recorded case of successful interspecies emotional bonding. From a purely scientific standpoint, you're invaluable. Luna's crystalline features somehow managed to convey a warm smile. From a personal standpoint, watching your love story unfold would be better than any holodrama. Zara looked at the transport loading dock, where the last few humans were disappearing into the ship that would carry them back to Earth. Then she looked at Kale, whose violet eyes held the promise of adventures among the stars, of love that defied the logic of 2 different worlds, of a future neither of them could imagine, but both desperately wanted. Transport vessel Aurora, departing in 60 seconds, the AI announced. Any remaining passengers will forfeit their passage. Zara, Kale whispered, both aloud and telepathically, his mental voice carrying emotions too complex for words. Choose us. Choose love. The crystalline being watched them both with ancient eyes that had seen the birth and death of stars. The transport to my station leaves from docking bay 7 in 20 minutes, she said softly. I'll be there either way. But I do hope you'll both join me. As Luna walked away, her form refracting into prismatic patterns that painted the corridor. In shifting colors, Zara and Kale stood alone in their shimmering bubble of telepathic privacy. The sound of the Aurora's engines powering up echoed through the station, a deep thrumming that seemed to vibrate in their bones. If we do this, Zara said, her voice barely audible, there's no going back. We'll be outcasts from both our peoples. Kale's hand finally closed the distance between them, his fingers intertwining with hers. The moment their skin touched, both gasped as their minds merged more completely than ever before. Through their connection, Zara felt the depth of his loneliness among his own people, the centuries of cold logic that had left him hollow until he discovered the warmth of her emotions. In return, he experienced her fierce curiosity about the Yazid universe, her boundless capacity for love, the dreams she had nurtured since childhood of dancing among alien stars. We'll find a new people, he whispered, his mental voice wrapping around her thoughts like a warm embrace. A people of 2, growing into something the galaxy has never seen before. The Aurora's departure alarm sounded one final time. Through the observation windows, they could see the transport ship pulling away from the station, carrying Zara's past and her safe, predictable future into the void. As it disappeared into hyperspace, she felt the last anchor to her old life snap free. Docking Bay 7? She asked, squeezing his hand. Docking Bay 7, he confirmed. And together, they walked away from everything they had known toward a future written in stardust and dreams. 20 minutes later, as Luna Crystalheart's personal vessel slipped away from Kepler Station, under the cover of a routine cargo departure, three unlikely friends began a journey that would change not just their own lives, but the very definition of what it meant to love across the vast distances between worlds. In the ship's observation lounge, Zara and Kale sat close together, watching the stars wheel past in their silent dance. Their hands remained entwined, their minds touching in ways that made Luna's crystalline form hum with harmonic resonance. "You know," Luna said, settling into a chair that molded itself to accommodate her unique physiology, "I have a theory about why the Council really voted for isolation." "Oh?" Kale asked, though most of his attention remained focused on the miracle of Zara's presence beside him. "They're not afraid of human violence or chaos," Luna continued, her voice taking on the tone of a professor presenting a revolutionary thesis. "They're afraid of human love. Because if the other species learned to feel as deeply as humans do, if they discovered the power of genuine emotion instead of cold logic, it would transform our entire civilization." Zara looked up from where she had been tracing patterns on Kale's palm, each touch sending ripples of sensation through their telepathic bond. "You really think so?" "Darling," Luna said, her crystalline form shimmering with certainty. "Look what it's already done to him. 1 week of exposure to your emotions, and this logical, controlled ethereal being just threw away 5 centuries of conditioning to run away with you. Imagine what would happen if every species in the galaxy experienced that kind of transformation." As their ship sailed deeper into the uncharted regions of the Twilight Nebula, none of them could have predicted that Luna's theory would soon be put to the test in ways that would shake the foundations of galactic society. But for now, it was enough to be together, to be free, and to be writing the first chapter of a love story that would span the stars. In the depths of space, love had found a way to bloom despite the odds, and the universe itself seemed to bend around the beauty of their connection. Whatever challenges lay ahead, they would face them together, their hearts beating in harmony across the vast symphony of the cosmos. 3 months had passed since Zara, Kale, and Luna had arrived at the research station, hidden within the swirling purple mists of the Twilight Nebula. The facility, which Luna had modestly called small, turned out to be a marvel of crystalline architecture that seemed to grow organically from a massive asteroid. Its bioluminescent walls pulsed gently with the rhythm of Luna's own life force, creating an environment that felt more alive than built. Zara stood in the station's central laboratory, her hands pressed against a console that hummed with alien technology she was only beginning to understand. Her auburn hair had grown longer during their time here, often flowing as if moved by invisible currents when her emotions ran high. What had changed most dramatically, however, were her eyes. They now held flecks of violet that seemed to swirl and dance when she was deep in telepathic communion with Kale. "Focus on the resonance frequency," Kale's voice whispered through their mental connection, his presence in her mind as natural as breathing had become. He stood behind her, not quite touching, but close enough that she could feel the warmth radiating from his ethereal form. "Feel how the crystalline matrix responds to your emotional state." Over the past weeks, they had discovered something unprecedented. Zara's exposure to Kale's telepathic abilities had awakened latent psychic potential in her human mind. But unlike the cold, logical telepathy of his people, her emerging powers were fueled entirely by emotion. When she felt joy, she could project warmth that made the station's crystal walls bloom with golden light. When she felt love, which was almost constantly in Kale's presence, her telepathic range expanded exponentially. "I can feel the entire nebula," she whispered, her voice filled with wonder. Through the telepathic link, Kale experienced what she experienced, the vast network of cosmic dust and ionized gas that surrounded them, all of it somehow responsive to the emotional frequencies she was learning to generate. It's like the universe itself is alive, Kale. Like everything is connected by invisible threads of feeling. Luna watched from across the lab, her crystalline form resonating in harmony with the couple's shared emotions. As an empathic being, she had spent centuries studying the way feelings could influence reality. But what she was witnessing between Zara and Kale transcended anything in her research. Fascinating, she murmured, making notes on a tablet that seemed to be made of the same living crystal as the station walls. Your emotional resonance is actually restructuring the quantum fields around you. If my readings are correct, you're not just communicating telepathically, you're creating a shared consciousness that exists in multiple dimensions simultaneously. Before anyone could respond to Luna's observation, alarms began chiming throughout the station. The gentle bioluminescence of the walls shifted to urgent amber, and Luna's crystalline features showed the first signs of concern Zara had ever seen. From her, "We have visitors," Luna announced, her voice losing its usual musical quality. "And they're not here by accident." On the main viewing screen, a sleek vessel materialized from hyperspace, its design unmistakably human, despite the alien modifications that had been grafted onto its hull. As it approached the station, communication requests flooded their systems. "This is Captain Finn Stargazer of the Independent Vessel Wanderer," crackled a voice through the COM system. "I'm requesting immediate sanctuary. I have critical information about Earth that could change everything." Zara's heart raced as she heard her native language spoken for the first time in months. "He's human," she breathed, then looked at Kale with sudden worry. "But how did he find us? This station is supposed to be completely hidden." "Love leaves traces," Luna said softly, her form shimmering with complex harmonies. "You're emotional. Bond with Kale has been broadcasting across subspace frequencies that most beings can't detect. But if Earth has developed its own telepathic humans, ... She didn't need to finish the thought. Within an hour, they had brought Finn aboard and gathered in the station's comfortable common area. The human pilot was nothing like what Zara had expected. Tall and lean with silver-streaked hair, despite appearing to be only in his 30s, he moved with the fluid grace of someone who had spent years in low gravity. His eyes held depths that spoke of wonders and horrors seen across the galaxy. 3 months ago, something extraordinary happened on Earth," he began, accepting a cup of Luna's specially brewed tea that seemed to sparkle with its own inner light. "Children started displaying telepathic abilities. Not all of them, but enough to catch the attention of our scientists. They're calling it the resonance event." Kale leaned forward, his ethereal features brightening with interest. "Spontaneous psychic development? That's theoretically impossible, unless there was some kind of catalyst." "The catalyst was love," Finn interrupted, his gaze settling on Zara and Kale's intertwined hands. "Specifically, your love. Whatever happened when you two bonded, it sent ripples through what our researchers are calling the empathic field, a quantum layer of reality that connects all conscious beings. Every human with latent telepathic potential has been awakening, and they're all reporting the same thing in their first moments of psychic awareness." "What?" Zara whispered, though part of her already knew the answer. "They're feeling what you feel. A pure, undiluted experience of love that transcends species, that bridges the gap between different forms of consciousness. Your connection has become a beacon that's showing humanity what we're truly capable of when we embrace our emotions instead of hiding from them." Luna's crystalline form began to resonate with excitement, creating harmonic overtones that filled the room with music. "Of course. The emotional resonance we've been measuring isn't just local. It's propagating through the quantum foam that underlies all reality. You're not just sharing your love with each other. You're sharing it with your entire species." But Finn's expression grew grave. There's more. The Galactic Council has detected the changes on Earth. They're calling it contamination, claiming that your emotional instability is infecting human genetic patterns. They're preparing a sterilization protocol. The temperature in the room seemed to drop as the implications sank in. Kale's mental barriers flared with protective fury, while Zara felt ice forming in her veins despite the warmth of their telepathic bond. They want to eliminate the awakening psychics, she said, her voice barely audible. All of them, Finn confirmed. They're planning to deploy quantum resonance scramblers that will sever the telepathic connections permanently. It won't kill the children, but it will leave them mentally crippled, unable to ever reach their full potential. Over my dead body, Kale snarled, his usually melodious mental voice turning sharp with rage. Around them, the station's crystalline walls began to pulse with angry red light as his emotions infected the living architecture. That's exactly what they're counting on, Luna said quietly. They want you to return to council space, to try, to stop them. It's a trap, darlings. They know that your love makes you both more powerful and more vulnerable. Zara stood up abruptly, pacing to the observation window where the swirling mists of the nebula painted the darkness in shades of purple and gold. Through their bond, Kale felt the storm of emotions raging through her mind. Guilt that her happiness had put innocent children at risk, fury at the council's cruelty, and underneath it all, a growing sense of purpose that burned like a star. Being born. Then we give them what they want, she said finally, turning to face the others. Her eyes now blazed with violet fire, and her voice carried harmonics that resonated through both physical and telepathic dimensions. We go back, but not as fugitives begging for mercy. Zara, Kale began, but she silenced him with a gentle touch to his mind that somehow conveyed her entire plan in a single instant. We go back as proof that love isn't contamination, it's evolution, she continued, her words causing Luna's form to shimmer with anticipatory excitement. Every species in the galaxy has been stagnating in their logical perfection, afraid to feel, afraid to grow, afraid to become more than they are. But we're going to show them what they could be. Finn leaned back in his chair, a slow smile spreading across his weathered features. You want to crash the Galactic Council and force them to experience human emotion directly. Not force, Kale said, understanding flooding through his consciousness as Zara's plan unfolded in their shared mental space. Invite. We're going to open our hearts and minds to every species in that chamber and let them feel what we feel. Let them experience the beauty of love, the power of compassion, the strength that comes from embracing emotion instead of suppressing it. It's insane, Luna said, but her harmonic resonance was building toward a crescendo of joy. It's beautiful. It's absolutely impossible. And it just might work. As the four unlikely allies began planning their return to the heart of galactic civilization, none of them could have predicted the revolution they were about to unleash. In trying to preserve their love, they were about to offer the gift of emotional awakening to an entire galaxy that had forgotten how to feel. Outside the station, the twilight nebula swirled with new patterns, as if the universe itself were reshaping reality around the power of their connection. Love had found its voice, and soon the galaxy would hear its song. The real adventure was just beginning.